"Sir, your name isn't on the list. Please step aside or security will escort you." He didn't argue. He simply held up the folded letter, creased at the edges, handwritten in blue ink. His grandson's words still visible. "If I don't make it back, I want you to sit in my place." The woman didn't read it. She just nodded to the guards behind her. He took one step back. No resistance. Just the soft sound of leather shoes on marble. The audience inside was clapping for heroes. None of them saw the one being turned away. He stayed by the wall, shoulders squared, the medal still in his pocket. The seat with his grandson's name had been removed. If you believe this man deserved more than protocol, type honor below. He stood still, hands behind his back, right below the brass plaque that read, City Hall, Hall of Service. No one spoke to him. No one even paused to look. His jacket was pressed but old, dark blue, threadbare at the cuffs, with a pin from his army days still clipped near the lapel. His left shoe had a scuffed toe. He noticed. He stepped behind a planter to rub it clean with the back of his heel, then straightened again, eyes forward. A woman walked by, adjusting her heels. A man in uniform held a clipboard and waved another family into the ceremonial chamber. No one said his name. The guards didn't ask him to leave yet. They just watched. Across the lobby, inside the glass-paneled hall, rows of seats filled quickly. Today was the city's annual Ceremony of Civic Valor, a televised event where public servants and fallen heroes were to be recognized. Among the honorees was a young firefighter, posthumously awarded the Medal of Civic Bravery, his grandson, but no one inside knew that. His name had been announced, a photo displayed, a placeholder set on the stage. But the one person invited by the boy's own letter, his grandfather, stood outside the velvet rope, unwelcome. He looked down at the folded program he picked up from the information desk. The boy's name was in it. Joshua Lane. Age 19, line of duty. No mention of family, no mention of him. He looked toward the front rows, all filled with polished shoes and practiced smiles. A woman in a maroon pantsuit approached again, the same one from earlier. This time she didn't speak. She simply placed a sign in front of the entrance gate, reserved for family and city officials only. He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He just stepped one pace back, closer to the wall. Someone from inside laughed. A camera flash popped. The master of ceremonies announced the next award. From his corner, the old man stood motionless, spine straight, chin up, like soldiers stand when no one salutes them anymore. A boy noticed. Maybe 10 years old, holding his mother's hand, he tugged gently. "Mom, that man, why is he just standing there?" His mother hushed him. No one answered. No one moved. The man didn't speak. He simply reached into his coat, adjusted the envelope that carried his grandson's letter, the same one that was dismissed at the door, and held it close to his chest. The audience inside rose to clap for a politician. The applause spilled into the hallway. He stayed still, silent. Inside the chamber, the ceremony continued like clockwork. The announcer's voice echoed through the marble corridors. "For courage in the face of danger, we present the Medal of Civic Bravery, accepted on behalf of Joshua Lane." The audience applauded, polite but brief. A staff member placed a polished wooden box on the podium. No one came forward to receive it. The official hesitated, looked around, and then carefully removed the box again. It was quietly placed on a small table near the stage. Back in the hallway, the old man shifted his weight, not from impatience, but because the ache in his hip, the one he never treated after the Gulf War, was starting to burn. He didn't complain. He didn't sit. He stayed upright, his eyes still locked on the ceremony through the glass. When the name Joshua Lane had been read, he didn't even blink, but his hand had tightened slightly on the envelope in his coat. The guards watched him more closely now. One spoke into his radio. Another repositioned himself between the doors. From the far end of the hallway, a senior city official approached with a woman in heels and a headset. "He's still standing there?" "Yes, sir, we've offered him the live stream from the lobby screen, but he declined. He can't be seen loitering near the dignitary's entrance. Move him." The woman nodded, adjusted her headset, and approached him again. "Sir, you've been told before, this area is restricted. We'll have to ask you to leave." "I'm not here to disturb. My grandson asked me to be here." "Your grandson's name is not registered under your file. He's not alive to file one." She paused. "That doesn't change protocol." From inside, laughter rippled through the hall. Someone had made a light-hearted remark about public service. A few clapped too long. He looked back toward the stage, where the chair with Joshua's name should have been. It was empty and unmarked. Someone walked past him on the way to the restroom, a councilwoman's assistant, judging by the badge. She glanced at him, then looked away quickly as if embarrassed for him. Others followed, some whispered. Some simply acted like he wasn't there at all. That hurt more than the cold dismissal. Not the words, but the collective silence. That quiet agreement that he didn't belong. The guards were closer now. One checked his phone. The other tapped his belt radio, ready to make the call. Still, the man stood firm. He reached up and adjusted his collar, then placed both hands behind his back again. The young boy from earlier passed again with his mother. He looked up. "Is he still there?" "Yes," the woman said softly. "Still." The man didn't hear her, but he might have felt it, that fragile line between being ignored and being remembered. Still no one moved to help. Still no one said his name, and he said nothing at all. The doors to the chamber opened briefly as a new wave of guests arrived, local business leaders, retired officials, and friends of the mayor. The old man stepped back to avoid the rush, flattening himself against the wall. He didn't belong in the current, and no one invited him to swim upstream. For a moment, the hallway was quiet again. He took that moment. With slow, deliberate motion, he reached inside his coat and removed a small box, worn, leather-bound, held together by a faded elastic strap. From it, he took a bronze pin, the same one his grandson had received at the academy graduation. The edges were dulled, the engraving barely visible. Service before self. He turned it over in his hand once. Then he stepped forward, not toward the door but toward a table near the wall. It held pamphlets about the city's civic programs, neatly stacked beside a row of decorative candles, and a glass bowl with white ribbons for families of the honored. He stood there for a few seconds looking down at the untouched white tablecloth. Then gently he placed the pin at the center of it. Next to it, he laid a folded note. Not the letter, that he would keep. This was something else. A message written in his own hand in rough script. Joshua Lane, age 19. Died saving 2 others from a fire. No seat today. That's okay. He wouldn't have sat while others were standing. No one saw him do it. No one stopped him. To anyone else, it might have looked like a discarded trinket, a forgotten flyer. The pin didn't shine. The paper wasn't fancy. But the gesture, it echoed. He didn't wait for anyone to notice. He stepped back, resumed his place by the exit, and folded his hands behind his back. A staff member passed by minutes later. She glanced at the table, paused at the pin, then looked around, and swept everything into a plastic bin without reading the note. She had other tasks. Inside, a new honoree was being introduced with bright music and applause. The crowd stood to cheer. The man outside did not move, but his fingers, still behind his back, briefly clenched, just once, before relaxing again. From down the corridor, a camera crew rolled past him. They didn't film him. The lens turned the other way, toward the dignitaries, toward the lights, toward the applause. He watched them go, and he stayed exactly where he was. The folded letter pressed close to his chest. The empty chair still visible through the glass, the name unspoken. But the truth now planted, quietly, humbly, on a white table no one else thought to approach. The next award was being read. Inside the chamber, a familiar name echoed faintly through the speakers in the hall. Joshua Lane, honored posthumously for valor in the line of duty. There was a pause, a soft cough. The announcer hesitated, as if something in the teleprompter didn't quite match the reality in the room. Still, the line continued. Accepted on behalf of the department. The applause that followed was scattered, confused. And then, Movement. From the far end of the hallway, 3 men stood up from the last bench near the memorial wall. They hadn't drawn attention to themselves until now. Their posture, until this moment, had been casual. But not anymore. One stepped forward, tall, with a gray coat covering the edges of a dress uniform. Another removed his cap, revealing silver hair beneath a perfectly aligned part. The third wore no visible insignia, but his pace and posture spoke of someone used to command. They didn't speak as they walked. They simply moved together, toward the old man still standing silently near the doors. People turned to look now. Even the guards shifted their stance. The tallest of the 3 stopped just short of him, then took one more step, not to confront but to stand beside. He opened his coat slowly and removed a small badge clipped to the inside pocket. U.S. Army, Major General, retired. He turned toward the security guard, who had instinctively stepped between them. "Step aside," he said calmly. The younger man hesitated, confused. The general repeated himself, just a shade louder but not angry. "This man doesn't move. He doesn't get escorted. He doesn't stand alone." The room behind the glass was finally paying attention. A few guests stood from their chairs. Some were whispering. Someone called for the event coordinator. The second man, still silent, approached the table where the note and pin had been left, now bare. He looked at the empty cloth, the plastic bin nearby, and frowned. Then he turned and addressed the chamber through the open doors. "Where is the family of Joshua Lane?" No one answered. He pointed to the man still standing in silence. "He is." Gasps, murmurs. One of the local officials began walking toward them, clearly unsettled. The third man, the one who hadn't yet spoken, raised a calm hand and said, "I served with this man's son. I trained his grandson. You want to know where the honor is in this room? It's standing outside because someone forgot how to read a letter." The mayor, seated at the front of the chamber, finally rose. Her voice came through the microphone, smaller than before. "Please bring him in." But the general didn't move. He looked at the old man, then said, not with force, but with gravity, "Sir, if you'll allow us, him will walk with you." The man didn't nod, didn't speak. He just stepped forward, and the 3 officers fell into place behind him. The entire chamber stood, not because they were told, because they couldn't sit anymore. He walked slowly, not from weakness but deliberation, as if every step had weight, history, and meaning, the kind of walk soldiers use when entering sacred ground. His shoes tapped softly against the polished floor of the chamber. The audience had already risen. Rows of city officials, decorated guests, and families stood in complete silence. The clapping had stopped minutes ago. No one dared fill the moment with noise. The 3 retired officers walked just behind him. No ceremony, no announcement, just presence. When he reached the front, the mayor stepped down from the platform. Her eyes, once rehearsed and bright, now carried something quieter, humbled, hushed. She didn't speak a speech. She didn't reach for a microphone. She simply extended a box. Inside, the Medal of Civic Bravery, meant for Joshua Lane. "His name belongs here," she said softly. "But today, this belongs to you." He looked at it, then looked at the chair beside the podium, the one that had remained empty through the entire ceremony. Someone had placed a folded card on it. Joshua Lane, age 19, son, firefighter, grandson. He didn't ask who put it there. He stepped forward and sat down, not on the edge, not at the back, front row. A few officials nearby stepped aside to make room. One adjusted her skirt and turned her face to hide the emotion building in her eyes. The medal stayed in his lap, untouched. He placed his hand over it, and then, gently, over the card with his grandson's name. That was enough. Behind him, the 3 officers remained standing, shoulders squared, eyes forward. They never took their seats. They didn't need to. Their place was behind him. A boy near the back saluted. Someone in the press section lowered their camera. No one cheered, no one clapped. The silence at last felt correct, like a burden being set down. When the final names were read and the crowd began to move again, he remained seated. A line of young cadets walked past him on the way out. Each one paused. Some nodded. One bent slightly to place a small pin in his hand. Another token engraved with the department's crest. He didn't speak, but his fingers closed around it with care. The last man out was the event coordinator. He passed slowly, glanced at the card on the seat, then at the man now holding what the system had nearly denied. He said nothing, only bowed his head and kept walking. The medal was never pinned to his coat. It didn't need to be. It stayed exactly where it mattered, over his heart, beneath his hand. And as the lights dimmed and the chamber emptied, the mayor's voice returned one final time, barely above a whisper. May we never forget the ones we nearly overlooked. The man did not smile. He did not cry. He simply stood, turned toward the exit, and walked out of the room where no one had invited him, but where, in the end, no one could forget him. If you believe silent dignity still matters in this world, subscribe now.